later panel, I think 40 minutes or so late, but we're trying to keep our panel concise and interesting and have a really good discussion. I'm going to try and keep the panel as informal as possible so we can have a proper debate and allow time at the end for you to ask questions. So please think about the questions you want to ask the panel towards the end of the session. We have a really interesting panel. It's excellent for discussing this topic of investment promotion and technology transfer. We have a variety of different countries represented from the investment promotional government side, including Lisbon from Portugal. We have Nigeria. We have free zones, in particular in Serbia. We were supposed to have someone from London, UK, but he hasn't turned up yet. Maybe he'll come later on. As well as representatives from government, we also have some consulting companies specializing in foreign investment and R&D and technology, and also some startup kind of VC type companies. So I think we're going to have a great debate. So I think I'm going to hand over now to Douglas, Dr. Douglas Vandenberg. Douglas and I have worked together for many years. I did our own startup business a few years back, so we've also been business partners as well. So he's going to do the keynote speech. I'll let Douglas kind of introduce himself at the beginning of his presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Henry, for that friendly introduction. Indeed, we have done a lot of things together over the last 10 to 15 years. Let me very briefly introduce myself. I'm the CEO of a company called Investment Consulting Associates, and we advise many companies around the world to invest in foreign jurisdictions. We do site selection, as the Americans would explain it, but increasingly we have moved, and this is also something that we'll touch upon, I think, in this panel in terms of intermediation between governments and companies, where companies are requiring clarification on, for instance, incentive policies or on specific permitting laws or regulations before they really invest. So we've done more than just the site selection work. We've advised many governments around the world on competitiveness issues and how to attract investment and how to best organize the organizations to attract investment, like investment promotion agencies. I would like to emphasize a few points. I think we have a remarkable panel, but I would just have to highlight a few points that relate to the topic of attracting foreign investments in high innovation activities or firms that could range from biotech to life sciences, ICT, pharmaceuticals. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to attract the top Fortune Global 500 companies that operate in this domain. There are many other small and medium high-tech industry, high-tech companies that generate jobs, that have a lot of spillover effects in terms of management know-how, in terms of capability sharing, in terms of distributing skill sets that are necessary to build a labor force that can work in those industries. So don't automatically focus on the big Fortune Global 500 industries like Pfizer, Sanofi, etc., but also focus on the more smaller, mid-sized companies. I would just like to highlight just a few general points as well that relate to attracting foreign investment. I think there have been a number of issues that have been discussed over the past few days on foreign direct investments. We had a lot of trends that were emphasized. I think it's important to highlight that what we see is that among many of our corporate investors, and when we speak to the investor community, is that they require more predictability and stability in investment policy making, whether that relates to permitting, whether that relates to incentives, or whether that relates to a special investment policy. There seems to be a lot of volatility in the market, not only among financial markets or among investors, but also among governments. FDI tends to be very politicized, subject to political cycles and political elections. We note that. We cannot always change that, but I think it's an important point to emphasize here as well. Secondly, we also see many companies that take different approaches to enter markets rather than foreign direct investment, whether that is through joint ventures, strategic partnerships or alliances, or mergers or acquisitions. It is not always greenfield FDI. We see different forms emerging over the last 5 to 10 years. So these are some general points that I would like to make. When we talk about attracting foreign direct investment in highly innovative industries, it is important that a region has the absorptive capacity to host those investments. What I mean with that is, can it really host and facilitate those investments? Many of you tend to think about infrastructure. Yes, infrastructure is one thing, the hard infrastructure like connectivity, the quality of roads, etc. But infrastructure is also the soft side of infrastructure, education. And in many cases, we hear investment agencies highlight the strength and the power of the education systems, which we acknowledge. We see a lot of education systems and a labor force that's highly educated. But education is just one thing. It's like getting a driver's license. For instance, you would never get into a car and drive around the world with a person that just got his driver's license. Driver's license is just a proof that you are capable of reaching a certain status in life in terms of you learn things at high school and at university or technical engineering schools. After that, you learn the big things, the difficult things. It's 10 years or 15 years of experience. And those are the things that investors often look for. The capabilities, the skill sets that you learn after your education. They believe that many countries around the world have excellent staff, have excellent young people that have a bright education. But it's also the skills and the soft skills that you learn in your profession the years after. And to make that analogy, you can't drive when you just got your driver's license. You only know how to operate a car and sort of navigate yourself through traffic, but you don't know how to deal with circumstances that are unpredictable. And those are exactly the things that many of the companies look for, especially when it comes down to high-tech industries. I think that's one important thing to emphasize. Another thing is, what is the track record if you're trying to attract investment into those industries? Do you already have a base of companies that operate in the high-tech industry, like ICT or pharmaceutical? Is there pharmaceuticals? Is there, for instance, a small cluster? What are the university programs? And are the university programs tailored to the specific requirements in those industries? And can you offer that to potential investors? So at least, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you need a track record of foreign investors, but also small and medium-sized domestic companies that operate in that field. For instance, in the ICT, there are many small clusters around the world, especially in emerging markets, where there are very strong capabilities and skill sets among these smaller companies. And small and medium-sized high-tech industry, high-tech companies from, for instance, the United States or also from Europe are looking for that domestic base to connect with, to learn about how have they developed the specific IT technologies and how can they interact, how can they learn from each other. So it's important to highlight that. Even if it's a very small startup company in your jurisdiction, these are young people, they share the same mindset, they have the same interests. So to connect with those entrepreneurs from abroad, which are often young, they're not the entrepreneurs who wear jackets and ties and everything. Those are the ones that wear jeans and t-shirts and sneakers, but they can be, they can add a lot of value in the long term to your country. So, and having those ecosystems and clusters, I think, is very important to offer to potential investors. Some case studies that I would like to highlight. But before I make that point, just one more aspect in terms of regulation. It's important to also have regulation in place, IP regulation, patent protective measures that can protect the innovation that takes place in your jurisdictions. Investors look at that because they want to protect their technology. Another point that is important, for instance, if you provide incentives to host those type of investments, if you, for instance, go through the screening and the screening of the specific project, investment project, you would ask a lot of strategic questions to the potential investor in terms of what type of technology are you going to develop? What is the added value of this technology? How are you going to conquer these world markets with your new technology? And investors are willing to share that, but they also are very reluctant to throw that into the open because these are their proprietary assets, their strategic assets. It's the core of their business. So be aware of that if you're going to ask for that type of information. Also, when you attract the more bigger types of investors in the high-tech industries, often this involves a large component of expats that will join that facility. Make sure you have the expat community or the expat requirements and needs in place that are relevant. Quality of life is very important for them. They're going to be the driving force behind the investments. Those are the people that you will be talking to in the initial stages of their investments. These are the ones that are going to grow the business in the first 3 to 5 years, and then simultaneously develop the labor force that needs to be employed in that facility. So that's important. Just 2 examples of locations that we have worked with and how they sort of attracted investments into high-tech industries. In the state of Maine in the United States, the Maine Technology Institute, it's very much focused, it's an incentive program, but it's also an investment promotion program to attract investment into specific industries in biotech, marine, and aerospace, for instance. The state of Maine takes a stake in some of the startup companies, so it provides small funding into the startup of the facilities and of the investments before the company can apply into the program. A second example is Saarland in Germany, where they specifically provide the availability of science parks. They have linkage programs with universities. They can facilitate investments onto the university premises. They provide very smart turnkey solutions for small and mid-sized companies in the high-tech industry. It works very efficiently. These small and mid-sized companies usually don't have the resources. They create a lot of jobs, often between 50 or 100 jobs in their initial investments, but they don't really often have the resources to get all the expertise to set up the facilities. So this entity, this investment agency, provides those turnkey solutions for them. It provides the legal advice, some of the facilities, or some of the real estate services. So it works very efficiently. Investors are happy to receive those services, and they can start and go to market very quickly. These are main points that I would like to make for the panel and also for the audience, and I encourage a stimulating discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Douglas, for that excellent introduction. Yeah, I mean, you raised some points which I think want to probably represent some of the most important trends in investment promotion right now. I think one of your points is something we're all going to talk about on the panel. I think is that developing a high technology industries is not just about large companies, getting Google or Microsoft. It's also about the smaller companies. And it just reminds me of a famous quote from Michael Porter, who said, "There's no such thing as low technology industries, only low technology companies." So, so technology can come from anywhere, and I think we're going to be talking about that. And also the role that startups play in investment promotion is becoming more and more important. So I'd like to, if that's okay, with Rui, to talk about Invest Lisbon. Maybe you could just do a very brief introduction to yourself, your position, what you do, and if you could talk about how Invest Lisbon is, what your investment promotion activities and strategy is to develop technology in Lisbon. That would be really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your invitation. Well, I'm responsible for the agency that promotes the investment in Lisbon, and we work we have three different segments of customer segments. One is the investment, the other one is companies, to attract companies, and the third one is to attract entrepreneurs. And because you have mentioned several times the startup scene, and in Lisbon we have been very successful in working in this field. 3 years ago we have created a new business incubator which is called Startup Lisboa. It's a public-private venture with the municipality and a private bank and also a state agency. And this has been very, very successful, and was the trigger, in fact, it was the trigger for changing everything in Lisbon regarding startups. 3 years ago, nobody spoke about startups, entrepreneurship, and today we were awarded by the European community as being the capital of entrepreneurship for Europe. Because of the work we have done in these 3 years, but also because of our strategy for the future. Now, these days, we have 15 business incubators. It's a network. It's an ecosystem. We like to mention the ecosystem side because there are, venture capital, everything is involved. And we have been able to attract almost 30% of these startups are from foreigners. So our foreigners, foreign entrepreneurs that are moving there.
And how are you attracting them? I mean, what's your, it sounds like a fantastic initiative, but how are you actually, in practical terms, how are you promoting to foreign entrepreneurs or foreign companies to come to your technology ecosystem?
Okay. Now, I would say that in the majority, this was an organic process. We have done something. We have done a small video, promotional video, with foreign entrepreneurs from different nationalities that were already working in Lisbon, and they were the ones that, with their testimonies, talked about what a fantastic place was to be working and creating their jobs in Lisbon, creating their startups in Lisbon. And it became viral, and we received many contacts from foreign entrepreneurs. We seen that video is great, and we want to know more, we want to go there. But that was just a small part, I think it was organic. It was the entrepreneurs themselves. And of course, the base of it is that I think Lisbon has very good conditions for entrepreneurs because we have the infrastructure, we have the internet is the fourth in Europe, the quality, the best quality of life you can get. You have surf and 30 minutes from the city. You have everything. You have universities and you have the low cost. And for the startups, it's very important to have the low cost.
One quick final question. Is it, maybe I'm wrong, but is it Portugal which has a new kind of scheme, say, for Chinese who can invest a certain amount of money and get citizenship? Is that right?
Yes, that's another part of the equation.
So I guess that helps with attracting
yes, but not really for the startups, but for the investments in real estate, mostly in real estate.
Okay. No, that's really, really interesting. Maybe, thank you very much. Maybe I can hand over now to Saruto Umar from Nigeria. I mean, Nigeria is obviously a completely different location to Lisbon, and we had a chat before about some of the activities you're doing to kind of track or develop high technology manufacturing, I guess, and agriculture. So maybe you could just talk a bit about your role and then what your organization is doing to attract technology investment.
Okay, thank you very much. Like he said, my name is Sarat Umar. I'm the CEO of the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission. So basically what we do is give support to investors to invest in Nigeria. So how do we go about doing our functions to promote technology in different sectors? So we look at things like the particular sector, we look at the niche strategies in them, and try to bring in investments that will actually be able to bring in modern technology as well. So earlier on you spoke about, you were asking me that what do we do in certain sectors. So I gave an example of agriculture. Now one of the key sectors the Nigerian government is trying to actively promote and develop is the agriculture. And we have currently, we have the Agriculture Transformation Agenda, and it has a range of commodities in agriculture that are going to be developed along value chains. So one of the value chains is to bring in high-tech farming into specific agricultural products. So there's a particular farm that we brought in. We did a lot of aggressive investment promotion in that, and it's engaged in high-tech farming, where not only a greenhouse, but also farms on, you see certain commodities that are growing on tables. So that we're trying to encourage the particular industry to actually share that technology amongst different groups in the farming industry. And of course, also engage in a lot of R&D that would also teach the local entrepreneurs on how to develop such technology.
No, I mean, that's really, really interesting. You know, it shows like a industry like agriculture, which is maybe thought of as a low technology industry, how you can actually bring in foreign technology and develop local skills to be able to adopt new technologies to develop the sector. Maybe that brings me nicely on to Joachim. Maybe you can just give a quick introduction to yourself, and maybe following on from Sarutu, maybe you can talk about I think your experience in Germany in particular, and how you can take existing strong industries and use those to kind of further develop technology ecosystem around those. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Henry. Yeah, I'm the Director of Lead Generation from Representation Service of OCO Global, which is a advisory company in the field of investment promotion and economic development, and particularly in the field of attracting investments, but also in how to develop regions and countries. And I think the latter is the one that we're right now here talking about. So really how to first develop a region and then lay the foundation for attracting investments, which I think comes first. And that's where we're actually at the point of how do we create this ecosystem which eventually will lead to international investments. Certainly foreign investors do play an important role in this ecosystem, but there we come to the point where you really need to consider that there's multiple actors within a jurisdiction that need to collaborate in order to create such an environment of technology transfer possibilities. So you have, on the one hand, certainly the companies, which are an important driver, but then on the other hand, you also have education institutions, you have associations, you have what we do have in Germany, cluster associations, which are particularly dedicated to connecting these dots. And I think that's the key really to support the development of a technology transfer environment, to have a managed environment of, how can you use synergies between certain institutions, what are their expertise, and how can you align these expertise to eventually create some added value for companies. And then using this to do investment promotion abroad. So it's really, is investment promotion really the only vehicle to get technology transfer in a country, or maybe you need to take a look a little differently at it and say, well, let's first create the local environment around key actors, and then on top of it build the investment promotion strategy, which we're talking about here.
No, I mean, thank you very much. I think that's a great point, that just trying to attract technology investment without working out what your offer is, and bringing all the stakeholders together to promote a particular industry, or as you said, around am I correct, around a major company, for example, as well?
It must, I mean, the situation in Germany is actually certain. We do have some large companies, but the majority of companies are middle-sized companies, which are around 1,000, 2,000 employees. They're quite innovative, and they have the need and the interest to collaborate on certain topics and do R&D in specific fields where you share information to a certain extent. And if you can create a collaboration between these mid-sized companies and involving entrepreneurship as well, this will create a vivid environment. Actually, it must not be around one single major investor, which is always the thinking. We need to have this one investor in this region, and then everything around it will build up. So if you have an entrepreneurship environment and some mid-sized company which are closely related, I think you do have the fundament to also grow a region and to create this environment.
No, that's very interesting. I mean, that brings me nicely on to Draga and Kostic. I think you're involved, with many special economic zones, and I guess at least my stereotype of a special economic zone is that it's kind of, you have your zone, you get all the benefits of investing there, tax and duty, customs, everything else, but it's kind of divorced from the rest of the economy. So I'm just wondering your experience in terms of SEZs and how they can be used for technology development, especially given quite often they kind of are a bit separated from the rest of the economy.
Good day, I'm Dragan Kostic from Frizon Pirot, Serbia. Your question is, this is the system of one country. What attract investment? The free zones is one tool of all the systems. This morning I visited airport free zone to Dubai, and we're preparing to organize one new world free zone organization with them. In May will be some conference here in Dubai. What is share one small country and free zone period with airport free zone Dubai? We share the idea for best incentives to attract investment. We share also, we born in 1996, free zone period also, and airport free zone Dubai. And we share that we have award from Financial Times 2 years in a row for best free zones of the world, 15 zones of the world. Free zone period have many incentives. In system and incentives, we organize first state incentives. You can produce or trade without custom duty, without VAT and all the taxes. The second is very important for us. It is small town. Municipality taxes is 0. And the second, services. The airport free zone Dubai have a huge amount of services. We also have services, very cheap services for our customers. In one place, you collect all these incentives, and it is, I think it is good for business. And of course, the people is in the first stage. We organize young people, select them, and help them to go to university, give to them a cheap apartment in small town, and the people is in the first stage.
Okay,
It is in brief.
Yeah, I mean, from I mean, Serbia's been very successful in attracting FDI in the last years. I mean, a lot of major investment projects have gone there. I mean, do you think special zones is a good approach to attract high technology investment? And do you have any examples of maybe high technology companies which have gone to your zones?
Yes, we have. We starting in the early 90s with one company, rubber product, from the name is Tiger. The young people go to abroad and bring to us technology, but it is enough. It's not enough. After that, we attract and we establish free zone period, offer these incentives, and after that, the multinational company Michelin bought this Tiger company, and last year they invest 250 million euro in rubber production, tires in free zone period. It is, I think it is a result of one system, incentives, and of course knowledge, and it is new technology, of course.
Okay, very good, thank you. No, that's interesting. So we've seen that there's different reasons why companies establish technology-driven operations. It could be because of availability of excellent zones which attract investment. It could be because of strong local industries or industries the government's trying to promote, for example, like agriculture, or in the case of Lisbon, you talked about building an incubator network and the quality of life, which is also attracting companies to set up businesses there. But also, of course, what's very important, is financing, especially when we talk about the small companies. So maybe, Miguel, you can talk about, from your company, give a quick background introduction to yourself and talk about really how important is financing in determining where technology businesses locate around the world.
Okay, so, well, to give a bit of a background, I'm coming from the entrepreneur side, I'm the kind of guy I decided long time ago to decide, to leave the multinational business and to do it myself. And I remember we set up a company in Spain for technology. Actually, it's funny because one of our investments was in San Diego, because one of the panelists was talking about how to manufacture ATVs in San Diego area and Tijuana, and to re-export to all the BAFTA region. And was really very particular because one of our first investments in technology was there. So, like 10 years ago, I remember after, being at one of the conferences I was, for entrepreneurs, I was actually in an R&D conference, and I listened to something that really changed my mind completely. They were talking about R&D investments around the world and how much the companies they invest in R&D. And I realized that the biggest investor in R&D in Spain is a bank. The biggest investor in R&D in Germany is a car manufacturer, like in Italy, Fiat. In Germany, it's Volkswagen. In Spain was the Banco Santander. So no technology whatsoever involved directly. Obviously, they invest in technology later. And actually in UK was Glaxo. The first was, I remember, Microsoft in the States was the biggest investor in private sector in R&D. So really this changed my mind about I was too much focused in technology. And I really realized that it was a moment to move to another sectors, as you say, through the finance part. So I sold the company and I created my own venture capital in Dubai. I did that because I really realized Dubai is, you're talking about 10 years ago, but Dubai was not as well known as it is right now. And I think I did that move because I really saw the changes here in the city, in this region, and I realized that in the next 10, 15 years, the growth is going to come from this area, Middle East and Asia Pacific. It's not like, of course, we still do investments in Europe. I believe still is a region there, the talent and the innovation is there. But we realized from the financial perspective of investing in R&D, you have to do it from a city like Dubai. Like some people, when I say that, get a little bit confused. But I really believe 100% this is the right place to do it. Not just because it's very easy to travel. Everyone from several multinationals around the world, from the financial perspective, is very good. The Gulf countries about, investments, venture capital, etc. We do a lot of work with another venture capitals in the region, and I think was the best decision ever I did 10 years ago.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, so having companies like you set up in a city, like Dubai, or wherever in the world, is going to encourage other companies to come and invest because you're going to be helping to finance them, I guess.
Exactly.
Are you just financing local startups in Dubai, or also like if a foreign entrepreneur comes, and will you finance their business and encourage them to go to Dubai, or does it matter where they invest?
It doesn't really matter. We work a lot with banks in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, in the region, in Saudi Arabia too. I believe the banks here, they just changed completely the perspective about investing in new companies in the last 2-3 years completely. I remember like a few years ago it was difficult to get finance for new companies in the region. Now the banks, I think through the new directives from the government, I think the government in UAE, they are doing very good in this, from this perspective. They're really asking to the banks to put money in the market, to the new entrepreneurs. I was yesterday in the startup, by the way, it's a startup 2015 here in Dubai, in Mina Siyahi, a lot of companies there. Young guys from the, from the Arab world coming with new companies, new ideas. It's really amazing. It was impossible to see this 10 years ago in this region. I really like, to see the young generations, not just in UAE, but in the GCC, in the Arab region, to bring out new ideas, and they are not scared at all to show you the idea, to get the finance, to go to the bank, to get that finance. I think it's very, very, very inspirational from my perspective.
Great, very good, thank you. And maybe just go to the panelist who hasn't spoken yet, to Mr. Shouraz from Falcon. Maybe you can just give a quick introduction about yourself and your company. And I believe that you're involved in helping governments attract investment.
Sure.
So maybe you can just talk about your experience in, what are the lessons you've learned in terms of how to attract kind of technology investment?
Good afternoon. My name is Suraj Dhawan, and I'm from Falcon Capital, New Delhi. I advise a lot of MNCs who are looking towards doing business with India. India currently is the flavor of the month. The whole world is looking at India as a place to do business with. The new Indian government has taken a very focused approach on what they want to do. They realize that by 2030, if India wants to become amongst the top 3 global powers in the world, they need to have a strategy to attract FDI, to attract investments into the region. Some critical analysis was done, and they realized that it's very vital to understand global demographic trends. By 2025, India will have 25% of world's working population. By 2025, India would have the youngest working population in the world, which is going to be huge. An average Indian worker would be of the age of 29. Chinese worker would be 43, and US worker would be 39. So a lot of people available in India to do work. Government also realized that as far as India is concerned, India is known for its service sector economy. We are reasonably well IT, biotech, R&D. World looks towards India as a place where business could be done. Even though India has a large population, it's extremely difficult to get GDP growth through agriculture. That market has already gone to Africa. Africa is the granary of the world, and a lot of agriculture investments will happen into Africa. So India as a country with already known service sector strength, realizing that re-entering agriculture will be difficult, has a very clear-cut focus on encouraging manufacturing in India. By bringing manufacturing in India, showcasing the world that you could harness India's available workforce, invest capital, leverage on India's large population as a good domestic market, it's a very good opportunity for Make in India and export for the world. To do that, Indian government is focusing on very fundamental steps. Number one, there is a concerted approach to ease doing business in India. Worldwide, India has been faring very poor in the global indices of how easy it is to do business in India. It is ranking 132. So the current government wants to focus to see that within next 1 year, India gets down in the top 100, and within the next 5 years, it should get down in the top 20 list. That is the objective. The objective is to make the business easy, make the business attractive. Then, in order to attract manufacturing, one needs skilled manpower. So Government of India has made 31 skill councils which are training young Indian people for skill orientation, and the targets are very, very ambitious. The government wants 150 million people to get trained by 2025 in skills, so that when overseas investors come, when foreign manufacturing companies want to do business by manufacturing in India, they are not short of manpower or labor in the Indian market. Like US, India has a federal investment promotion structure. Each of the Indian states is free to give incentives to foreign investors. So our 29 states are all competing towards getting overseas investors to come to India. And they've got different strategies which are making it interesting and workable. North India, South India, each one of them is focusing on a strategy which is suitable. So if there's a foreign investor who says that, look, I want to come to India, I've got a $50 million plan, each of the state would come with an incentive, a structure which is unique and fundamentally aimed towards attraction. Some of the key sectors which were reserved by the government have been opened up in the last 2-3 years. Defense is one example. Overseas companies are now allowed to invest in the defense sector. They can invest up to 49% in India. But to jumpstart the investment, Government of India has also started focusing on a campaign called Defense Offset. That everybody knows that India is the largest defense importer in the world. Each defense company who wants to sell equipment to India has an obligation to make 25% of the goods in India. So that jumpstarts local manufacturing. It is defense, it is high tech, it has to be made in India. It makes a big difference.
Thank you. That's very, very, very interesting. Yeah.
So some of the fundamental things which were closed economies, like defense, aerospace, are still opening up. Government wants to tell people that, look, India means business. If you want to do business, tell us how we can make it facilitative. Having said that, the real business opportunity is in the SME collaboration. Global SMEs are finding Europe, USA very much expensive to work in. They find good quality labor not available so easily. So there is a concerted effort to attract manufacturing companies from Europe and US and say, shift your manufacturing to India and export from India. Each of the focus regions, whether engineering or pharma or auto components, or the areas where fundamental manufacturing is required in large volumes, Government of India is saying shift manufacturing to India, export from India. We have got enough technical manpower to take care of your labor requirements. We are making business absolutely easy. Most of the states have started a self-approval system that if you need to apply permission to the government would say, okay, my standard delivery period for giving you permission is say 3 weeks. If you don't get the permission in 3 weeks, it is assumed that you have been granted permission on a self-certification basis. A most amazing way to promote, attract investment, to tell the investor that, look, the day you apply, if within 3 weeks you don't get any objection from our side, take it as a deemed approval to make it happen.
Can I just come in there? So just for timing reasons. So, I mean, that was very, very interesting. I think your points about how you improve your business environment to attract foreign investment, especially important for technology companies and SMEs. I mean, especially small companies, they need a business environment which is easy to do business in, easy to move in. It's probably why Dubai was very attractive to set up your company, a very easy place to come into. You touched on one point there. Maybe I'll just bring Douglas into the discussion again. Where is Douglas? Oh, there you are. Sorry. Yeah. So, I mean, he mentioned incentives in terms of how the Indian states are competing for investment with incentives. I know that you and I a few years back worked on a project for the Chilean Economic Development Agency. I mean, Chile doesn't have that much R&D, and they used Douglas's company to try and attract R&D investment and had quite a attractive incentives policy. So I wondered, like, from your experience, can incentives be used to kickstart R&D investment?
Well, the answer is very simple. Yes, it can. Especially when you talk about startups, they often need capital, they need some funding. The process of innovation that takes up in some of these startup companies is time consuming, it requires resources, so there are, obviously it helps to kickstart a business when there is some funding tailored to the specific technologies that one is developing in a specific location. So it does help. R&D types of incentives make sense. We often hear about locations or countries offering tax holidays and corporate income tax exemptions, or corporate income tax, which is normally 20 or 25 or 35%, down to 0 for the first 5 years. Companies that are involved in innovation don't make any profits the first 5 years, so giving them a tax credit on corporate income tax, and if they're not going to make any profits, just doesn't make any sense. So we've been advising many governments not to do that. One approach is, for instance, what the government of Vietnam has done, is to give that corporate income tax exemption once the company starts making profits in its first year of its first profitable year, and then it has the corporate income tax exemption for 5 years. I think that makes much more sense, because the first 2 to 3 years are often not the most profitable years for companies that are involved in technologies.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just going to have one more question for the panel, then we open it up to the audience to ask questions. So this is anybody on the panel, please feel free to come in. I mean, at the start, Douglas, in your opening keynote speech, you mentioned about different types of FDI and how important mergers and acquisitions, joint ventures, partnerships are to technology development. So I was just wondering, maybe hearing from any of the panelists here, in terms of your government activities to attract investment, or from a consulting point of view, do you get involved in mergers and acquisitions to help, let's say a foreign company acquire a local company and then develop the technology in that company, or facilitating partnerships or joint ventures? You want to? Yeah.
May I tell something? About, we have in Serbia also in free zone one special free trade agreement with Russia. I think it is interest for investors that if you have some production in Serbia and 51% origin of Serbian, you can export to Russia with only 1% for custom duty. European Union have 25 to 45 it depends on product. I think it is very interesting because it's a very special free trade agreement with Serbia and Russia. These days, I think it is interesting to thinking about.
But do you have Russian companies then buying Serbian companies and then they
is
can
is not
export back?
is not every company all the world can use this this special free trade agreement if they have 51% of Serbian origin.
Okay. Maybe from your point of view, running the Invest Lisbon agency. I mean, would you get involved in a merger and acquisition or joint venture type investments?
Well, sometimes investors ask us to identify some companies that they are interested in in specific sectors. So we try to do it. It's not very common, but it's yes, we have some demands on it. Let me just take the chance to tell you about one of the last projects we have launched a month ago. And I think it's very important because I'm hearing in this Congress much talk about networking and the importance of networking to attract FDI. And we have created a network of, we call it Lisbon Business Connectors. And this is an open network, mainly started with managers, ITOP managers from multinationals that are already installed in Lisbon, and also from our diaspora, Portuguese diaspora abroad. And this is just starting, but we were, and we are seeing already, we are seeing results, and it does allow us to have a huge sales force for Lisbon. Our agency is very small, but in this taking care of this project, we have lots of people in very high-level positions that are inside the corporations and that will be our ambassadors to attract new investments from those companies into Lisbon. And I think this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, okay, maybe you could come in there. I mean, your company, Oka, I mean, you have some pretty big contracts with like Jetro, Japan, with UK government, helping them attract foreign investment. I mean, from your experience, you know, when are they open to different types of FDI, or is it just focused on greenfield investment? And how do you go about attracting technology investment in practical terms?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Henry. Absolutely, there's different approaches to the topic of how to match companies and go beyond the traditional greenfield attraction, which is certainly, and this is the case still, the priority for all agencies, just to have these huge manufacturing plant and the ribbon cut, which is undoubtedly the main goal, and it's a great achievement. But still, the world is changing, and it goes toward more of a partnership and an M&A activity, joint venture. So working for the government of Japan and JETRO, actually there's an active support in connecting foreign companies and local businesses in setting up joint ventures, in creating business in Japan together, and they were actually facilitating this investment. And also, on another point, next to the partnering, it was all about aftercare and working with companies that are already located in the country, which is essential when you're talking about technology transfer, because when, as your example of the business connectors is excellent, because that's exactly what it's about. You've once manage to root a company in your region, but then try to work with them and try to connect them with the local businesses in order to grow, and then certainly the technology transfer will come along. And then there's a third aspect which I wanted to mention is how can you actually connect local tech companies with foreign investors? And that's an area where I haven't seen in IPAs involved that much, even though I think this creates a huge potential, having these local small businesses that are looking to grow, that need funds, that need, and on the other hand, abroad you have strategic investors that are looking for opportunities to put their money in. So this is something where you can bring in the IPA strategy and the function of taking over the facilitator between the money and the local tech community, and then in the end, driving investments and certainly creating jobs with local companies.
No, I think that's a extremely important point you make, and it's maybe a challenge or an opportunity for investment promotion agencies. So maybe I'll open it up to the audience now. Maybe you have any questions for any of the panelists here. Any questions or?
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Aminu Takuma from Nigeria. My question is actually to the gentleman at the extreme end there, the gentleman from India, Falcon. Yeah. What I want to find out is what is from your understanding of the multinationals that come into India, what is the mode of entry? What attracts them? Is it, for example, in China, we know of the cheap labor, but in India, what is the mode of, what do they look at? Because a lot of multinationals actually go into India, so I would like to know from you, the strategies you've adopted, and why they actually come into India. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See, currently, MNCs are looking at three major things as far as India is concerned. They want to look at the large domestic market, where India is a big consumer itself. They feel that in order to sell to the Indian market, they need to be present locally. They are also looking at a trend where China, the cost of production is getting expensive in these times. Power rates in China are increasing, the labor rates in China are increasing, and the population, the working population is getting older. India offers them an ecosystem where the cost of labor is now lower than China. It offers them a population which is still not penetrated by the Western markets. And it gives them an opportunity to de-stress their global diversification policy. They may already have 3-4 manufacturing plants in China, 1 or 2 in Southeast Asia. Now they want to focus as a de-stressing strategy to have 1 or 2 plants in India. So all these three factors cumulatively make India as an attractive destination. And as I mentioned before, after the Chinese wave for the last 20 years, India will enjoy this wave for the next 20 years. Then this wave is going to move towards the African markets. So Africa has a lot to learn from India, especially in creating an easier business environment and training their manpower, so that when the Western countries are looking at Africa as the next wave, Africa should be ready.
I completely agree with what you're saying. I think they're great points. Did you want to come in and say a few words?
Yes, please. I wanted to add to the point of this mergers and acquisition. And as an agency and as a country, we're trying so much to ensure we promote and bring in investors that would merge with some of our local entrepreneurs. But beyond merging, there's also acquisition, where they acquire either brownfield projects, for example, and then come along with them technology that would also facilitate the development of local technology back home in Nigeria. For example, bring in a bigger investment outfit, a particular maybe automobile industry that would now set up in Nigeria and develop the local competency where the components for that auto industry are being supplied by local companies. Of course, you would agree that that would come with it technology to those particular industries to be able to give the right product, the right quality, and all of that. Then also we have where we do acquisitions, like for example, we have Lafarge. Lafarge is a French company, is into cement production. It acquired a local industry back home in Nigeria and brought along with it technology and skills and all of that. So we try to encourage all of that. We also do investor targeting. We target specific investors from around the world. For example, we are targeting investors in different industries from Japan. And we're saying to them, when you do come along with your investment, you also need to come along with technology and also develop part of it home in Nigeria. So we have a lot of strategies that we engage like that to ensure we bring in modern technology into the country and also develop local skills and competencies within Nigeria. We also give incentives, just like other speakers have mentioned. We have a range of them, depending on the sector. We have also the tax holiday. And apart from that, we also develop special incentives depending on the particular sector. So if a particular investor requires certain kinds of incentives to be able to come and bring in technology to Nigeria, we do that. For example, the Liquefied Natural Gas Company of Nigeria started years ago, and the particular incentive they got then was about a 10-year tax holiday. And they took that, and they finished that particular holiday and are paying now a lot of tax back to the Nigerian authority. So we engage a lot of incentives like that. We do that. We also have the policy advocacy, where if an investor requires certain kinds of policies to be in place, we advocate for that with government, and then government customizes certain policies for depending on the sector. So the range of strategies we adopt to ensure that we develop different sectors of the Nigerian economy. I'm sure you know Nigeria does have a lot of opportunities in different sectors, across sectors, and we're trying to diversify intensely now the other sectors of the economy other than oil. Even the gas sector, just recently we launched the Gas Industrial Park, where it will bring in a lot of technology where gas is concerned and with its multiplier effect as well. So that is also being done, and we have a lot of master plans. Apart from the agriculture I mentioned earlier, we have also the Industrial Revolution Plan that has a lot of incentives and investment strategies in them along the value chain. So we're actively working along with different agencies to ensure that we promote investments, not at the base level, but with modern technology along with it. So there's so much we can do, and we're trying to do.
No, that's really interesting to understand your activity. So we're going to wrap up in a minute now, but I think from what you've seen from all the panels, there's so much lessons, different countries, different cities can learn from each other when it comes to developing technology, whether that's from startups, multinationals, existing industries, incubators, and so on. So I mean, there's so much which you can learn from each other, and that's, I think, why an event like this is so useful for everyone. Maybe just allow just a final comment by each of the panelists, maybe just in less than 1 minute, maybe summarize, what lessons or what do you think are the 1 or 2 top lessons for how to attract technology investment?
Well, I thought that the question that was made from the audience was very interesting. Why do companies choose your city or your region or your country to establish? And I was thinking about it, and I think the most important reason why companies choose Portugal and Lisbon for locating their businesses is to use them as the platform for other markets. It's a platform. And why? Not only the geographic location and the fact that being member of a European Union and having the relations with the Portuguese-speaking countries and so on, but mostly I would say because of the human resources. Our human resources are culturally, they are very keen to work with the exterior, with the foreigners, to speak their languages, and it's an incredible advantage for multinationals. For the ones who have global business, it's very important to have human resources that can be moved to other countries, that are always willing to speak with someone from somewhere else and to resolve problems that's dealing with many different cultures. And that's why we are attracting lots of service centers, excellence centers to work with many markets. And I think it makes it's a strong point.
That's a really excellent, interesting point. Douglas, do you have any final comments?
Yeah, just thanks, Henry. Just a brief point. I think it's important to emphasize that technology is not always about numbers or technology or innovation. Innovation is about trial and error. It's about perseverance. It's about a vision that entrepreneurs have. It's about intuition. It's being at the right time in the right place, and it's a long-term process. It is not something that you can just seed and it will grow automatically. Often innovation starts spontaneously. The biggest inventions in time were always spontaneous processes that sort of came together. There is no structure in that process. And also when you look at entrepreneurs or some of the most recent successful developments or technologies, and I refer to ICT, you would see that they have been established and resulted from a very spontaneous process, but a long-term process. For instance, think about a company like Facebook. Facebook doesn't own content. It doesn't do that. It's just one technology that brings together people from all around the world. Airbnb, the most recent development in the hospitality industry doesn't own real estate. It is nothing. It's just one piece of technology, but it employs a lot of people. Another company like Uber, which is revolutionizing in many industries and exploring the way people are transported from A and B. It's basically a taxi system, but it doesn't own one single car. So if you think about those concepts in business and the innovation behind it, it's a very different process than attracting manufacturing. And I think that's an important point to emphasize. And one thing what I really like is the Lisbon Business Connectors program. I think it's really effective. We've recently, our company has set up an industry collaboration program where we try to link our companies that we work with in the high-tech industries or ICT to link them up with companies in other jurisdictions, in other cities and locations to collaborate. And that increases investments and sharing of ideas and concepts. I think it's very effective. Thank you.
No, thanks, Douglas. So we have the kind of global access to markets, multicultural, dimension, which you talked about in Portugal, and then you have the areas you were talking about, Douglas. I think combined it makes a very attractive proposition for technology investment. Joachim, do you want to make a closing?
Just wanted to highlight again the importance of bridging these differences in doing business, which also relates to different culture, but also in understanding of technologies. So if there's a way of facilitating the interconnectedness and getting people together on a certain level and initiate discussions about deal making about technology investments and technology transfer. This will particularly be for emerging economies an important aspect of working with companies. It always comes out that, well, we are looking for a partner who understands the local environment, and where can I find a partner? So that's actually where investment promotion agencies and local institutions also come and play again to take over this role of matchmaking. And so particularly this the partnership and trying to helping foreign companies accessing the tech companies locally and other businesses locally. This is an important point.
Yeah, so you're also mentioning the importance of these international networks between companies and governments and associations.
Right.
Do you want to make a few closing comments as well?
Yeah, thank you. Basically, as a closing comment, the thing to focus on as an IPA, like we've tried to do, is to ensure you know what your focus is, what strategies, what sectors are you trying to develop, and then develop country strategies as well. If, for example, you're dealing with India, what do you want out of India? Maybe we'll say ICT, for example. What would you want out of Japan? Maybe automobile. So have specific strategies like that that would ensure you actually also look at the technology aspect of it. Because if you have the basic strategy of what you want, then it's easier to bring in what you need. So look at that, do investor targeting, also provide the aftercare, the pre-investment services, where you would also give a lot of hand-holding support to investors, and then try as much as possible to link them with local entrepreneurs so that you ensure that there's a technology transfer, skills transfer, and all of that along the value chain, and also to ensure there's a lot of matchmaking and networking along the entire investment value chain. So do all of that, bring specific incentives, specific policies that would also encourage modern technology into the economy. I think once all of that has been done, it will really facilitate in a number of ways influx of modern technology in any economy.
Thanks, Asia. I think excellent recommendations for any investment promotion organization. Dragan, do you want to say a few words?
Yes, very briefly. Our experience, Serbia is a very small country. Pirot, in Free Zone Pirot is in town Pirot. It is a small town, 25 kilometers to Serbian-Bulgarian border, but it is old Roman road. 2,000 years is this road to east to west. It is not enough only incentives. You must have a system to organize all and attract investments. Thank you.
Yeah, no, very good point. Migo, I mean, I'm sure you're hoping to find the next Uber to invest in.
Yeah. Well,
so how are you? I mean, Uber saved me in Dubai quite a few times, I have to say.
Thank you, Henry. I just want to make a small comment about mergers and acquisitions. Everything, absolutely everything in the world is about mergers, acquisitions, and partnerships. There is no way to launch a product and service without that. I mean, why Google bought Motorola not to use the logo, to buy the portfolio of patents? Why Facebook bought WhatsApp? Not for WhatsApp logo, for WhatsApp to use the 700 million numbers WhatsApp got in the database. Why Lenovo, a Chinese company, bought IBM? They cannot even use the IBM logo. They bought it because the portfolio patents, the technology transfer. There is no way. I mean, how the world is structured today is so global, with so many communications, the new generations. I speak with my small brother, and I get freaked out about how much he knows about how many friends he got around the world. I mean, when I was young, it was impossible to do that. I mean, today, anyone, like my company itself, trying to invest in small companies, we do that not just to create value, but in the future, maybe those companies will create big value for big multinational corporations around the world. This is the key issue.
I think it's a great point. I mean, as well as the kind of very clear strategy which you outlined for an investment promotion organization, is the type of investment has changed so much.
Exactly.
As you say, I mean, you can't ignore acquisitions and partnerships.
Exactly.
If you're talking about technology, it's central to it.
Exactly. That is a fact, that the biggest innovation is not in your company, it's outside your company.
Yeah.
It's a fact.
And as Douglas was saying, it's a whole process of creative destruction as well,
Yes.
which that is essential
Exactly.
to.
Yeah.
And finally, Suraj, do you want to make some? I know you've already given a lot of very good recommendations and lessons from the Indian experience, especially how that could be applicable to Africa. But just very concisely, some final comments.
See, I would say that in the global village, if there is free flow of capital and a free flow of technology, the world will be a much better place to live in. Thank you.
Thank you. So maybe a round of applause to the panelists, and thanks everyone for attending.